You open a medicine cabinet and find something that looks like it belongs to another decade. Tucked in the back corner is a small bottle of oil, thick, glossy, almost too shiny. The label sounds ordinary, castor oil. But the moment you recognize the name, the rolls start piling up in your head. People swear it helps hair. Older generations remember it as a medicine. Early machines used it as a lubricant. And in one dark chapter of history, it was even used as a tool to punish and humiliate. So what is this stuff really? How can one simple-looking oil keep switching jobs like that? Let's get into it right here on Secrets of Simple Things. What castor oil is. Castor oil is a plant oil pressed from the seeds of the castor plant, Ricinus communis. The plant looks tropical, big leaves, fast growth, but it isn't limited to one place. It's historically associated with parts of Africa, and today it's cultivated widely, especially in India, Brazil, and other warm regions. India is often cited as the biggest modern producer of castor oil, which is why the simple bottle in your cabinet is part of a huge global supply chain. One quick naming trap. People call the seeds castor beans. But they aren't beans. They're glossy, patterned seeds, more like polished stones than anything you'd cook. At first glance, that still sounds like just another oil. But castor oil doesn't behave like most oils. It's thicker, it clings, it stays put. And that one behavior is the thread that ties its entire story together. So the question isn't, what do people use it for now? The real question is, what did it do first, back when oil wasn't a trend, but a necessity? From lamp fuel to medicine cabinet, castor oil has been used for thousands of years. Archaeologists have found castor seeds in ancient Egyptian contexts, and historical records describe oils being used for light and for practical remedies. In a world without electricity, oil wasn't a lifestyle choice, it was infrastructure. In India's long medical traditions, castor oil appears again and again as a familiar tool, especially tied to the digestive system and inflammation. Not as a miracle, but as a substance with a strong effect that people learned to handle. Then, much later, castor oil became something more personal, a household bottle. For many families, its reputation condensed into one famous use: constipation relief. It worked quickly enough that it became a story parents told and children remembered, and that effectiveness pushed castor oil into a strange place in culture, both trusted and dreaded. Because when something works powerfully, it can become comfort or it can become control. When a remedy becomes a weapon. As a laxative, castor oil stimulates activity in the intestines, increasing movement through the digestive tract. That's why it stayed in home medicine cabinets well into the 1900s. But the same effect that made it useful also made it easy to abuse. In early 20th century Europe, especially under Mussolini's Italy, castor oil was reportedly forced on political opponents as a form of humiliation and punishment. Large doses could cause severe diarrhea and dangerous dehydration. The goal wasn't healing, it was degradation. This is one of those moments where a simple thing reveals a human truth. Objects don't carry morality, people assign it. And that's why castor oil carries a shadow. But the strangest part is this: the real danger isn't in the bottle, it's in the seed. Once you learn what the plant itself contains, castor oil starts to look less like folklore and more like careful separation. The seed with a warning label. Castor seeds contain ricin, a highly dangerous, naturally occurring toxin. That fact is real, and it's why the raw seeds should never be treated casually. So how can castor oil be sold, used, and even applied to skin? Here's the separating line. Properly processed castor oil should not contain ricin. Ricin is water-soluble. Castor oil is fat-based. During pressing and heating, the toxin stays behind in the leftover mash, rather than traveling into the purified oil. The hazardous part and the useful part belong to different lanes, and manufacturing is the act of keeping them apart. That's the first hidden rule of castor oil. It's not only about what a plant contains, it's about what the process isolates. Which brings us to the practical question. How does that separation actually happen? How it's made, why grade matters. Castor oil begins with harvesting and drying the seeds. The shells are removed, and the seeds are pressed to extract oil, either with cold pressing or with processes that use heat. Cold-pressed castor oil is typically sold for personal care. It's pale yellow, very thick, and has a tacky, clingy feel. Industrial castor oil may be further refined depending on what it's meant to do. This is where castor oil becomes a real SST object. The label castor oil looks singular, but the product you buy depends on purpose. The process decides purity, handling, and suitability. So if the bottle in your cabinet feels unusually heavy and slow, that's not a defect. It's a clue. If you're buying it for personal care, look for words like cold-pressed and for external use. If you're using it on hair, start with a patch on skin first. The point isn't fear, it's matching the right bottle to the right job before you commit to more. Because castor oil's weirdness is not a vibe, it's a molecule. The science, the one ingredient that makes it different. Most plant oils are built from common fatty acids. They pour quickly, they spread thinly, they behave like food. Castor oil is dominated by an unusual fatty acid called ricinoleic acid, which makes up most of its composition. This single feature changes everything about how the oil behaves. Ricinoleic acid helps castor oil stay thick. It helps it remain stable under heat, and it gives the oil a strong ability to cling to surfaces. That's why castor oil can act like two different products depending on context. A moisture-sealing film on skin and a friction-reducing layer between moving parts. So, castor oil's many uses aren't random hats it wears. They're one core behavior, showing up wherever that behavior is valuable. Now let's bring that behavior into the present without turning it into a miracle story. Modern uses: moisture, conditioning, and what it can't promise. Castor oil is trending again, mainly as a beauty product. You'll find it in lip balms, lotions, and mascaras because it helps form a barrier that reduces water loss. It doesn't soak in like a light oil. It sits on top and protects. That same barrier effect is why people apply it to scalp, eyebrows, and eyelashes. The honest version is this: evidence for dramatic, direct hair regrowth is limited. Castor oil won't rewrite genetics. What it can do is improve conditions. It can moisturize a dry scalp, reduce breakage, and make hair look shinier and thicker because it coats strands. For brows and lashes, it can support the appearance of fullness by reducing dryness and fragility. The most common mistake is using too much. Castor oil is dense. A heavy coat can make hair look greasy, trap dirt, and feel uncomfortable. So many people dilute it with a lighter oil like jojoba or coconut, or they use just a few drops warmed between the fingers. And here's the twist that makes castor oil feel almost funny. Its beauty logic is the same reason engineers cared about it. The industrial side. The same oil, a different job. Before modern synthetic lubricants became widespread, castor oil's stability and lubricating behavior made it valuable in mechanical contexts. When you need an oil film that doesn't break down easily under heat and friction, thickness and stability stop being cosmetic traits and become engineering traits. So the same oil that clings to eyelashes can also cling inside a system where metal would otherwise grind itself apart. Different setting, same rule. Which brings us to the simplest takeaway: how to use castor oil in a way that matches its nature. The 5-second rule. Use it like what it is. Here's your 5-second rule. If it pours like cooking oil, don't use it like castor oil. Real castor oil moves slowly. It clings to the bottle. When you tilt the container, it slides down in a thick sheet rather than a fast stream. Then use that thickness correctly. For skin, apply a tiny amount and spread thin. Think seal, not soak. For hair or scalp, Use a few drops or dilute it, so it distributes evenly. For brows or lashes, use the lightest touch. More isn't better with something that sticks. Castor oil doesn't need volume, it needs precision. The rule hidden in a forgotten bottle. Castor oil looks like a simple thing until you notice the pattern. One physical behavior, thick, stable, clingy, becoming useful in completely different worlds. That's why castor oil can live in a medicine cabinet, a makeup bag, and a factory. Not because it's mystical, and not because it's a trend. Because the chemistry makes it behave in a consistent way, and humans keep finding new places where that behavior matters. And then there's the human layer. The same object that helped households also became a tool of humiliation when power wanted a spectacle. The oil didn't change, the hands holding it did. So, when you find an ordinary bottle hiding in the back of a cabinet, don't assume it's just old. Sometimes it's a clue proof that even simple things have rules, histories, and consequences. If this changed the way you see that little bottle of castor oil, tell me, what did you know it for first? Hair and brows, skin care, grandma medicine, or the industrial side? And if you enjoy uncovering the hidden rules inside everyday things, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next small secret.